All right, gang, we're running a little bit late today, but we are here, which means I'm going to drop the facade fairly quickly. Although we know that the facade is one of the selling points of this very program that you're watching, which is called Tent Talks Tunes. Yes, I dropped the facade, but I still got it. It's right here. You can see it. I'm holding it in my own two hands. The facade, which is an 8-track cartridge that I used to herald my arrival today. Oh, yes. Sorry for being a little bit late, guys. We had a board meeting over at Anti-Scene Incorporated. And, you know how it is. Business first. Pleasure must come later. Even though this is my business, it's also my pleasure. Heck, talking to the boys in Anti-Scene is a pleasure as well. It's all good. The thing is, I'm here. Alan Versapellis is here. We're all here. It is indeed Tent Talks Tunes. I am totally going on the fly here because of the meeting I just wrapped up. I've had extremely little time to prepare, but you know what? Ornette Coleman would call this the art of the improviser. He said improvisers, but I'm just one guy. It's a singular thing. It's an improvising thing from one dude sitting in one chair staring at one camera. Oh, yeah. Well, there's hardly anybody here right now. I can kind of understand why. I'd like to be on at 7 o'clock on the dot, and maybe people gave up. But you know what? I'm going to keep on talking, kids, and eventually somebody will show up. And of course, when this episode is archived forever on my YouTube channel, no one will even know I was running late today. Nobody will even know. So let's just get right down to it, shall we? Let's take a look at the bulletin board. Let's take a quick peek inside the mailbox. And then let's talk some tunes, shall we? Well, here's the bulletin board, all chock full of all kinds of great stuff, some of which I've talked about before. But we know that will not stop me from talking about it again, because I'm all about the current events, you know what I mean. What do we got to look forward to here in this life on this planet? Well, July 19th, in the unlikely location of Concord, North Carolina, yes, indeedy do, at the Clearwater Arts Gallery, you will have the second ever performance by the Clayton Wenzel Band, playing some of that good old-timey acoustic gospel music. I will be playing the acoustic guitar and stomping on the bass drum as is needed. So, it's a fun gig. I really enjoy it. Lots of good picking and grinning out there in a very natural sort of setting. So that's July 19th. Concord at the Clearwater Arts Center. Come on out, say hi. Have your ears caressed rather than your eardrums punctured. Of course, there's nothing wrong with having your eardrums punctured. That's why we're doing the Rule Breakers Ball, September 19th and 20th at the Ground Zero in Spartanburg, South Carolina. Oh, yes. 2 nights, 10-ish bands, all carefully selected by Anti-Scene Incorporated. Night number 1, Taped Fist, Future Hate, Knowledge is for Fools, Before I Hang, and the no doubt triumphant return of Rancid Vat. Saturday, you got the Blue Ridge Death Cult, Wrath of Typhon, Self-Made Monsters, Josephus and the George Jonestown Massacre, and of course the only band on planet Earth that could top 2 nights of rock and roll mayhem such as that. Only one band can sit on top of a roster like that, and that of course is the almighty Anti-Scene. And I'm not going to reveal any surprises, but all I'm going to say is, when we hit the stage, be prepared for surprises. That's as far as it goes. Also, for those of you who like to see rock and roll in the daylight hours, haven't had time to print out the flyer yet, but just announced August 9th at Repo Record in Charlotte, North Carolina. Anti-Scene are playing the record release party for our brand new 12-inch maxi single entitled The Anti-Scene Time Machine. we will have, for the first time ever, the product in hand. We will have a table set up to sign the records, pose for pictures, shake babies, kiss hands, do all the great things that bands do at record release parties. We're going to play a short, but arguably sweet set of anti-scene music. And it's going to be loud, it's going to be proud. August 9th at Repo in Charlotte, North Carolina. It is free. It is all ages. It starts at 4 p.m., guaranteeing you a unique anti-scene experience. Oh, I forgot to mention my adventures with G.G. Allin. Soft cover, hard cover, written by Gigi's friend, roadie, videographer, merch man, tour manager, you name it, Len did it. The great Len Colby. Great book. Sales have been going very well. The reviews are quite favorable. That's why you got to get one, either from me or through my eBay store or even on Amazon if you're an Amazonian type of person. My Misadventures with G.G. Allin by Len Colby, edited by me, published by TPOS, which is now to be found at P.O. Box 173, Newton, North Carolina, 28658. It's been a couple of weeks now, and I actually just about have my new P.O. Box memorized. I've been quoting and have quoted the wrong P.O. Box number to a few people, but, you know, with enough reps, anything is possible, and I have repeated it enough in my 60-year-old brain to remember that it is indeed P.O. Box 173 in Newton, North Carolina. Oh, yes. And just by seeing the sheer number of thumbs ups and hearts that remark got, I can see a bunch of you guys out there might have memory issues of your own. It's good to know I'm not the only one. Oh, it's good. It's very good. It's very good. Hello, Kyle. Thanks for tuning in. Hello, Gary Forney. Thanks for tuning in. We'll get to you, Gary Forney, in a minute. Spent a lot of time wrestling with technical difficulties, but my brand new updated website is now up. It is live. It's got exciting new content that has never been seen before on the internet. So check me out on my website, malcolmtent.net. Lots and lots of stuff on the website that is not on my social media, not on my Facebook, not on my Instagram. Gets a little bit deeper into the story of Old Man Tent. And the latest edition of malcolmtent.net is a special page dedicated to stories of the first proper band I was ever in. Killed by Death Legends, Broken Talent from Florida, 1983 to 1986. A bunch of stories, a bunch of oral history from former members and associates of Broken Talent can be found, not published anywhere else in the universe except on malcolmtent.net. So if you want to check that out and maybe glean a little bit of South Florida punk rock underground music history, my website has got some. Thank you for your kind indulgence. All right, that's the bulletin board. Let's see what's arrived in the mail. You know, I got this envelope addressed to the old P.O. Box from my good pal Food Fortunata in Saginaw, Michigan. Food gets a lot of airtime here on Tent Talks Tunes because Food is not only a founding member of Sockeye, not only a very talented musician and creator in his own right, but he is also doing everything in his possible to keep the art of the print zine alive. And here it is, the latest issue of Ear of Corn. When I say latest, that's kind of relative because this was actually sitting in limbo for a while. But here it is, number 61. Can you imagine? 61 issues of Ear of Corn. That, my friends, is a lot of dedication, a lot of wildness, a lot of love for what you do. And because he's also keeping the art of the collage alive on the back cover. I got my first piece of junk mail last week and made a collage out of it. So Food Fortunata is very much cut from the same cloth that I am. Let's see. We got reviews. We got articles. We got more reviews. We got interviews. The Larry Mondello Band. Look at that. A real, honest-to-gosh interview in a print zine. I love it. Ear of Corn number 61. Check it out. You need it. Food Fortunata. You're out there somewhere. I know it can be had if you want it. All right. Here's another thing. A box. Hey, what do you know? This went to the current address. And it's from Brilliancy Prize, P.O. Box 65116, San Antonio, Texas, 78265. I know exactly what's in here, but I have not seen the contents of this box yet. So this is a very exciting cold box opening, or unboxing if you want to put it more efficiently. This goes back to Halloween of last year, in which Anti-Scene did a run of shows. One of them was in San Antonio, Texas. And, of course, on the bill with us was Rancid Vat. Because if you're in San Antonio, you dang well better play with Rancid Vat, because they're the reigning heavyweight champions of that city. It was a very sweet event. Lots of fun. Always a pleasure to share the stage with Rancid Vat. It ended up being kind of a bittersweet event after the fact, because little did we know, or could anybody have possibly guessed, but we were talking about the last ever concert appearance by Beer, the lead singer of Rancid Vat, who very sadly succumbed to, I believe, a heart attack not too long after that show. And to me, I've said it before and I'll say it again, it's worth saying, you never know how long you're going to be here, or I'm going to be here, or how long any of us are going to be here. So all the more reason to get out there and grab the gusto, see the bands you want to see, make the art you want to make, hang out with who you want to hang out with, do what you need to do what you got to do what you want to do. And as Warren Zevon said, enjoy every sandwich. Because who ever would have known that night that I would never see Beer again on this planet? And Beer, he was a great guy, a very gracious, really cool dude. Luckily, I had the MT Field unit rolling that night, as I always do. It's part of my, I'm not going to say obsession or compulsion, but my deep-seated desire to document the musical aspects of my life. So I record, whenever possible, every show I play and every band that I play with. And it ended up being a very good thing that I was able to document Beer's last performance and leave it to Marla V, the longtime reigning queen and head honcho of Rancid Vat, to take said recording and release it as a compact disc. And here it is. I'm seeing it now for the first time. I'm holding it in my hands for the first time now. Looks great. Let's open it up and take a look at this thing. You know, people who knew me back in the 90s heard me going on and 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 on about my intense hatred for CDs. I hated CDs with a passion. Well, guess what? Now I like CDs. I like CDs. I like CDs because the means of manufacturing and distributing CDs have been delivered to the people. A CD has become a populist medium, just like cassettes. And you can actually, even if you can't make something like this at home, you can, at a very reasonable price, get a quality CD manufactured that looks great and sounds great. Excuse me. I mean, just look at that. Professionally printed. Looks awesome. I have no doubt that it sounds good. And it's a fitting tribute to Beer. And I'm glad to have been a part of it. It even comes with a sticker, a Rancid Vat Lonely at the bottom sticker. This is very cool. I can't wait to pop it into the old CD player and give it a listen. And we'll see if Harry the Cat kicks or sticks when this music is playing. Usually he just sleeps right through everything I play. But you can't really sleep through Rancid Vat. Rancid Vat demands a response. I'll figure that out later. Thank you, Marla. Thank you for the discs. Much appreciated, and very glad that I could be of service to the cause of Rancid Vat. I'll just say again, September 19th, Rancid Vat are still around, and they're going to be delivering the goods at the first night of Rule Breakers Ball in Spartanburg, South Carolina. All right. This is not incoming mail, but outgoing mail. This has been a long time coming. Most projects on my label, TPOS, most projects on TPOS are a long time coming because I'm a busy guy. I got a lot of stuff to do. I'm also a one-man operation. I do everything from scouting the talent to cutting the cassette inserts with a pair of scissors to assembling the CDs by hand to packing them and mailing them. I do it all, everything. So, you know, if I didn't have to sleep, I could achieve so much more. But as it is, I do get some things done. And as shown at the very beginning of the show, the brand new Pumpkin studio album is now available on 8-track. It's available on cassette. I am right on the verge of making a Bandcamp page for it. Actually, I have made a Bandcamp page for it. That's how busy I am. I forget what I've done. There is a Bandcamp page for it. So you can listen to it on Bandcamp. Bandcamp, see? TPOS. Bandcamp. Go there and look up Pumpkin and or Gary Forney, the Lost Studio album. It is streaming. Even if you don't feel like playing it, you can listen to it. And that's what it's all about, right? So the punchline is, Gary, I got them all made finally, and I'll be sending the 8-tracks, a couple of cassettes, and the other items you wanted from TPOS within the next day or two. So patience pays off. Thanks for sticking in there with me. And hope you like what you see. Hope you dig what you hear. Yes. All right, I think that takes care of our pending business. What with the bulletin board and the mailbox, what do you say we get down to business and talk tunes? The Beach Boys. The Beach Boys. I love the Beach Boys. Love the Beach Boys. But if you got to be really specific, I love the work of Brian Wilson and his use of the voices of the Beach Boys as one of his many varied sonic tools. And even now, even though I've loved that band for a very long time now, it still seems kind of weird for me to say those words. Because growing up, you know, I was born in 1964, came of age in the 70s and the 80s. In the 70s and 80s at the time, the Beach Boys were absolutely perceived as an oldies act, as a nostalgia act, as a silly surf band. That was just the common perception of the Beach Boys. You know, you're talking about the late 70s, early 80s. You've got musical genres like punk rock, new wave, heavy metal, you know, hard rock, whatever. And, you know, the Beach Boys were really viewed as this kind of like anachronistic, whitey-tighty, freshly scrubbed, good time, oldies act. That's just really the way they were perceived. That's how I thought of them. That perception was certainly helped by the fact that this album here, The Beach Boys' Endless Summer, was a huge, gigantic hit album in 1974, 75. Let's see if they put a date on this one. Capitol Records were never very good about dating their product. But this is definitely Mid-70s we're talking about. Probably 75, I'm going to guess. Oh, 74. I was almost right. So 74, and the Beach Boys are catching a wave, ha 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 ha, of renewed popularity based on a double album compilation of their old surfing hits. Never mind that they've got contemporary portraits of the Beach Boys on the front, looking all hairy and bearded and kind of pop art. It's a great album cover. It's a really good album cover. Outside and inside. And, you know, historically accurate, because that's what the Beach Boys looked like back then. They were long-haired and bearded. But the music was strictly early 60s, Dinwiddie Pearl, Hang 10, She's Fine, My 409, Amusement Parks USA kind of stuff. And so it really seemed dated. Now, I got this record more or less when it first came out because I was a member of the Columbia House mail order record club. You know, get 57 albums for 1 penny, and then all you have to do is buy X number at full price, and you're ahead of the game, you know, whatever. So I was a member of Columbia House, and somewhere along the line, I picked up the Beach Boys' Endless Summer. Probably because I had seen it on TV so much. It was advertised heavily on TV, you know, as an oldies record. So I'd be, you know, come home from school, sitting down in front of the tube with a peanut butter sandwich to watch the Three Stooges or Popeye or Gilligan's Island or Bewitched, you know, whatever was on after school reruns. And here's all these commercials for this oldies album, The Beach Boys' Endless Summer. So I ended up with it, bought it, didn't like it. I didn't like it. To me, to my ear, and you got to remember I was like 10, 11 years old at this time. To my ear, the music sounded old and dated. It sounded corny. It was not nearly as exciting as what I was hearing on the radio at that time, which was like, you know, you're starting to get the earliest hints of disco and just really well-crafted, contemporary-sounding pop music. These early Beach Boys tunes, to my ear, sounded really lightweight and disposable. So I only played the record maybe a couple of times and promptly forgot about it, even though I did take the trouble to bust the poster out of the record and hang it on my wall. This Beach Boys poster hung on my bedroom wall until the day I moved out. So the Beach Boys were always there. I just didn't like them. Go figure, right? I think I like this poster the best because it had one of those trailing advertising signs that we used to see on the beach when we were kids. And I really loved those things. So I have a feeling I might have hung it up just because of that. Anyway, that was my first experience with the Beach Boys. Fast forward a few years. 1980, 81, 82. I'm at high school. And our high school had a very good library. Real good library. I hung out at the library a lot. That's not where the cool kids hung out. That's where I hung out, along with my other nerdy, geeky friends. And Mrs. Gilliard, the librarian, she was super cool. She made sure that there were books and magazines at the library that we would find interesting, you know. She had a lot of rock and roll and a lot of music books in the library, including a couple different encyclopedia of rock types of things. And so I would, you know, get to the library, and there was always time between when I got to school and when first period began. So I'd go to the library and just leaf through these books and just read. I'd read about any band in any one of these rock encyclopedias. I didn't really care who they were. I just wanted to know. I wanted to know about the music, and I wanted to know about the bands. So I'm reading through one of these, and I come to a chapter on the Beach Boys. So, you know, I read it. I had already established in my mind that I didn't like the Beach Boys, but it didn't mean I didn't want to know about them or was not interested in their history. I was very interested in the history and the story behind the band. And let me see if I got my prop over here. Hold on for 1 second. I have a better prop I want to show you guys. It's right here on the ground. Oh, yeah. Got to pick it up off of the float. In this entry in the encyclopedia for the Beach Boys, they showed a couple of the more recent contemporary Beach Boys albums. One of them was an album called Holland. And the other was an album with the very improbable, unlikely title, especially considering the cover art, of Surf's Up. Now, Holland intrigued me. I was really intrigued by the way this album looked. It was artistic. It was pure artistry, the way that front cover looked. It was a really beautiful, kind of enigmatic cover image. Totally dug it. But the one that really, really caught my attention was Surf's Up. You know, like, obviously the first thing you think about the Beach Boys is a song called Surf's Up. But the cover, the image of the beaten down Aboriginal American on his beaten down horse with that dark, brooding, foreboding painting, that was a real disconnect. That definitely piqued my interest. And they didn't show the back cover, but the back cover is kind of the same. The covers are very muted. They're very dark. Very interesting song titles. Don't Go Near the Water. Student Demonstration Time. A Day in the Life of a Tree. You know, these are not surfing songs. Apparently there's more going on to these Beach Boys than I might have thought when I was younger. So, okay, something is starting to be filed in the back of my mind now about this group called the Beach Boys. Fast forward a couple more years into the future, and I'm working at a record store, and somebody traded in somewhere. Now let me get my other prop here. Gotta remember, guys, I'm sort of running on no preparation. But somebody traded in a record by the Beach Boys. This was at the Great Open Books and Records in North Miami Beach, Florida. A record store that was extremely important to my formative years. It's where I learned how to run a business, was at Open Books and Records. So big salute to Leslie for teaching me how to run a record store. Somebody traded in another very interesting looking Beach Boys record. It was called Smiley Smile. And unlike most Beach Boys records that would get traded in and stuck in the bin for like $3.50, this one got put on the wall with a price tag of $7.50. And I said, Leslie, why is that? And you know, I don't remember exactly what she said, but she said something about the legendary status of this album. And I thought, okay, that's something else to file in the back of my mind. You know, you've got these guys who I always thought were just a silly surf band, but now they've got albums that look really interesting, and one of them has legendary status and merits being priced at more than double what your average Beach Boys record sells for. And sure enough, somebody bought it. Somebody paid $7.50 for that copy of Smiley Smile. So the intrigue grows. The intrigue grows. As I get more and more involved in the business, and as I eventually moved to Connecticut and opened up my own record store, my phone is ringing. I have to reach over and turn it off. Nick Chasulo, if you're watching right now, I just hung up on you. Sorry, guy. It's because I'm live on Tent Talks Tunes. I'll call you back in a minute, or 30, or 45. Depends on how long I want to wax rhapsodic about the Beach Boys. Could go on for a while, you know. Now here's a question. before I go any further in the story, who's with me? Who understands where I'm coming from when, because of my youth and the way that the Beach Boys were perceived, who remembers the Beach Boys as being strictly an oldies act? I mean, I don't think I'm alone in that perception, but I'm curious to know what people out there think about that, like what their perceptions were and are of the Beach Boys. I mean, they certainly, under the leadership of Mike Love over the past 50 years or so, have definitely made their living on the oldie circuit. I mean, Las Vegas for weeks and weeks, and here we are, we're 85 years old, but we're going to sing Catch a Wave and 409 and My Little Deuce Coupe. It gets to be kind of embarrassing after a while. Okay, I'm getting chimes from my two compatriots in anti-scene, the big boss Jeff Clayton and the guitar player Walt Wheat says that I am not alone in this perception of the Beach Boys as an oldie act. Oh yeah, Branson, Missouri, that's what the Beach Boys do. They play moldy oldies to moldy oldie people. But not necessarily. Not necessarily. Because there's a big disconnect between the product that the Beach Boys Incorporated have been selling for the past 4,000 years and the music produced by Brian Wilson, the founder, leader, chief songwriter, producer, I'm going to say it, genius behind the Beach Boys. So yeah, this huge disconnect between that and what I keep hearing in the background about this incredible, lost, legendary Beach Boys album, which was not actually Smiley Smile, but an album called Smile. I'm starting to hear rumblings about this album that was going to rival Sgt. Pepper as the masterpiece of mid-1960s pop, but never came out. It's an album that never was released. It wasn't even finished. And this was coming from people whose opinions I respected. People who really knew their stuff. People who I looked up to musically. The buzz was that the Beach Boys, and thus by extension Brian Wilson, had created this body of music that you just got to hear. So now I'm really, really intrigued. So I've got my ear to the ground, I've got my eyes open, I'm scanning the horizon, my radar is up, and one day I'm talking to a friend of mine, a guy named Ray Hoffmiller. Ray was the lead singer of a band called Head. Not one of these things, but the word H-E-D, Head. Head were the band that should have put Danbury on the map in the days of grunge. They were untouchable in terms of I never missed them. I saw them every single time they ever played, and they blew me away just about every single time. So their lead singer, Ray, is one of those guys who had really good taste in music. And so we were just chitting and chatting, and somehow the topic of the Beach Boys' Smile came up. And he said, oh, I have a cassette of all that stuff. I said, really? Any chance I could borrow it? He said, sure. And he let me borrow a bootleg cassette of Beach Boys' Smile. And remember, back in them days, that's how you had to do it. There was no YouTube. There were no MP3s. There was no Spotify. There was no Bandcamp. There was no streaming or digital anything. Digital didn't even exist. If you wanted to find rare, obscure, arcane, impossible music, you had to find it. You had to actually meet somebody who had it in their possession and then make like Monty Hall and make a deal. Or they'd let you borrow it, you know, whatever. So he let me borrow this cassette. It was 90 minutes of Smile music. And from the minute I pressed the play button and heard the alternate early version of Good Vibrations, I was hooked. You know, because I'm just a huge sucker, a fan, an endless mark for alternate recordings, unreleased recordings, studio outtakes, demos. Jeff Clayton got the Monty Hall reference. I just love that stuff. That stuff really fascinates me. So the first thing I hear is a completely different version of one of the most famous pop songs in the entire world. And then everything that was on this cassette was either really weird, really bizarre, borderline depressing, or magnificent. Now I'm starting to get it. Now I'm starting to understand that there is a difference between Surfin' from 1962 and Surf's Up from 1966, 1967. Big difference. And the song itself, Surf's Up, was like the ultimate Pearl Harbor attack, because you're expecting, with a song title called Surf's Up from the Beach Boys, you know, you already know what you're expecting to hear, but I'm here to tell you, people, if you haven't heard that song by the Beach Boys, you gotta hear it. You've got to hear it. It was just like a meteor coming out the sky and smashing my head and exploding with beautiful sound. So now I'm on the quest. Now I'm on the hunt. I've actually heard some of this fabled Smile music, and it lived up to the hype. That's a rare occurrence in this business, my friends. You know as well as I do. Public Enemy said it. They said, don't believe the hype. I'm here to say, occasionally, you can believe the hype. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. So now the quest is on for Smile. I have to hear more of this music, and I have to hear it in hopefully better fidelity than this 15th generation cassette, which I, of course, did copy. Made a copy for myself, you better believe it. And I played that thing endlessly. So, turns out, after much research and looking around, that the cassette that I got from Ray was compiled from 2 different bootleg LPs that came out in 1983. Some enterprising bootlegger out there made the effort, went through the blood, toil, tears, and sweat to actually track down whatever Smile music they possibly could and make albums. The first album was very rough. It's about 40% authentic Smile music and about 60% guesswork. But every song on there, with a couple of exceptions, actually did originate from the fabled Lost album. The second edition winnowed out some of the non-Smile stuff and replaced it with more genuine, legit Smile stuff. And it's even better. And long story short, I became a collector of Beach Boys Smile stuff. Because every so often, every few years here and there, another little batch of songs would leak out somehow. Somebody would find a couple of acetates that had been made, or a tape would surface at an auction, or a bootleg would come out with stuff that no one had ever heard. And gradually this entire body of music slowly became available in the underground tape trading circuit and whatnot. And just about everything I heard was fantastic, like legit mind-blowing. And at the same time, it made me appreciate this album a lot, because this is the version that the Beach Boys themselves released after the original Smile project got torpedoed. And this record is a legitimately weird record. This is a bizarre, I'll say it again, weird ass record. This is a strange little record. This sounds like it was recorded in a closet by guys who were zonked out on, I don't even know what, with, I can't even describe it. It's like the smallest, tiniest sounding little record you ever heard. It's one itty bitty microscopic sounding record. When you play this record, you feel like you're this. You feel like you're in this position listening to this music. It's so small. It kind of makes you small. And I think it clocks in at about 25 minutes. And that includes Good Vibrations and the almost hit single Heroes and Villains. It's like these guys recorded 20 minutes worth of new itty bitty music and put it out as Smiley Smile as opposed to Smile. And some of these tracks were on those original bootleg LPs because at the time, the bootleggers just didn't have access to the real tracks, so they put the remakes on them. And it kind of made me fall in love with that album because these are just so damn weird. If you want some homework and you want to hear a genuinely bizarre record that's going to be over in about 20 minutes, check out Smiley Smile by the Beach Boys. It's a strange one. So between all these bootlegs of Smile and the absolute bizarreness of Smiley Smile, I'm really starting to dig in to this Beach Boys thing, and I'm really starting to understand that there's a huge difference between Mike Love, the exceedingly creepy lead singer of the Beach Boys, who's been running that ship now for decades, and Brian Wilson, who is a genuine, honest-to-God, musical visionary. There's a huge difference between the music that Brian Wilson was making and Mike Love punching a clock and making a living by playing Branson, Missouri, 51 weeks a year. The story is getting really intriguing. So then I started reading books about the Beach Boys, and I saw, oh my God, they're not these clean, fresh scrubbed, gleaming teethed, bright-eyed surfer guys wearing striped shirts. They're messed up. These dudes are messed up. This could be one of the most dysfunctional bands who ever walked the face of planet Earth. I can't believe these guys got anything done. And then the incredible sad story of Brian Wilson's decline and fall because of this record and the incomprehension that greeted it when he tried to explain it to the record company, explain it to Mike Love. Nobody got it. Nobody wanted to get it. It crushed the guy. It totally crushed Brian Wilson. And he essentially went to bed and stayed there for the next 10 years or so. You know, because it turns out he had undiagnosed depression and God only knows what else. No pun intended on the God only knows. So, I mean, the story is getting really deep and poignant now. You know, how many artists are destroyed by their own art? This is real heavy stuff. So the story is really something. And I'm reading in these books, primarily the one by Jeffrey Gaines entitled Heroes and Villains, that, you know, every once in a while, either they would force Brian Wilson out of bed, or occasionally he would actually want to get out of bed and go into the studio and could occasionally still crank out some magic. And that's where these albums, like Holland, for example, and this is from the personal collection. This is Holland. Check this out. Collector geeks and freaks unite and fall in love over this. Oh yes, the white label promo of Holland. For the actual number of these albums that sold, they might as well have just gone ahead and pressed up the white labels and just scrapped the rest, or not even bothered with pressing the stock copies. white label promo of the album, and a white label promo of the bonus 7-inch EP, which is stuck to the cover as per original release. This is what got me about Holland. The one major contribution that Brian Wilson made to Holland was a fairy tale. A little mini rock opera as a fairy tale called Mount Vernon and Fairway. And it's just got the right combination of very strange, very wonderful, legitimately beautiful little piece of music, which of course the Mike Love faction of the Beach Boys hated and refused to put on the album. They would not put it on the album. So as a compromise, it came out as a 7-inch EP that was attached to the album. Whatever works, right? So Mount Vernon and Fairway alone, by Brian Wilson, with very strange narration by their manager, Jack Riley, is worth the price of admission alone. The rest of the album, what do we got on here? Let's see. Carl Wilson comes out with a pretty good track called The Trader. And that's about it. Yeah, The Trader on the album. Mount Vernon and Fairway attached to the album. Forget the rest. But you got to remember, it was that extremely artistic front cover that hooked me in the first place. So even with a basically mediocre piece of product like that, you still had a couple of gems. You know, you go to the aforementioned Surf's Up album with those very interesting song titles. It has the song itself, Surf's Up, which I said before. If you're not moved by this song, Surf's Up, then you're a rock. You're immovable. You can't be moved if Surf's Up doesn't just get you right here. And never mind that, how about Till I Die? A song that Brian Wilson actually came out of the bedroom to write, produce, arrange, and record. Now, he actually had nothing to do with the finished product. The Beach Boys finished that themselves without Brian's involvement. He found it too painful to be involved in this song from his lost masterpiece. But they did a pretty good job of finishing it. Till I Die. Whoa. Whoa. And then Disney Girls by Bruce Johnston, pretty good. Feel Flows by Carl, pretty good. A Day in the Life of a Tree, pretty good. Pretty good. You got 2 genuine masterpieces, 3 that are pretty good, and then a bunch of Mike Love-led pap. But man, what a great album cover. And what stories there are behind this music. So many stories. Now, the Beach Boys eventually did realize the error of their ways. They realized that they sank their own ship when they put the kibosh on Smile. So every now and again, they would trot out a couple of tracks from those sessions, finish them off, and stick them on an album. As we saw, Surf's Up is on that album. A few Smile songs are on Smiley Smile. On their last album for Capitol Records, 2020, there are 2 more Smile tracks. One entitled Cabinescence, which is a masterpiece, and one entitled Prayer, which is a wordless a cappella prayer. Oh, yes. Now I see Kyle is chiming in about how awesome the Beach Boys are, especially the album that he got from me, which takes us right back to where it all began. But we'll get there in a minute. So 2020, it's got a couple of those fabled Smile tracks, but what else is on there? Well, let's see. Let's take a look. By the way, even though Brian Wilson was barely functioning, the record company demanded his presence and participation on the Beach Boys record. They demanded it. But Brian couldn't get out of bed every single day. So, a couple of Smile tracks. I think he's got 1 or 2 production tracks on this. What's on here? There's a Brian Wilson track on here called I Went to Sleep, which is just like the most pastoral, tranquil, quiet song about, basically about a day in the life of Brian Wilson in which he just doesn't do anything. Time to Get Alone, a Brian Wilson production. I Can Hear Music, which is a Carl Wilson production, and really good. A couple of songs by Dennis that are kind of getting there. You know, he's starting to feel his chops as a songwriter and a producer. Not there yet, but he's working on it. And some nostalgia and a couple other sort of forgettable ones. But it's kind of the same deal. It's like, even though it doesn't fit into the nostalgia oldies category, it's still, it's different. There are magnificent bits. There are some kind of strange bits and a lot of pap and a lot of filler. You have to do the digging to find the gems on these Beach Boys records. And I'll tell you one thing. There is a Beach Boys record, and I've talked about this one before, that in the early 80s, when I was a rabid record buyer and a huge consumer of vinyl records, I would haunt the cutout bins. And there were two Beach Boys records, which were perennial, permanent bin fillers. One of them was 15 Big Ones, and the other was The Beach Boys Love You. Of course, at the time, I did not take the Beach Boys very seriously, but later on, when I could track these albums down, I made a point to see what was on them, what was listenable, what was not, what was good, what was bad, what was Brian, what's his name, Mike Love? What is there? Well, this record here is, by and large, pretty dire. This is definitely, this is an oldies album. It was originally going to be an album of nothing but oldies covers. Apparently the record company wouldn't go for that. They insisted on some new material. So it's a real grab bag. And it's got some stuff on here. It's Okay is a decent song. You know, I'll give credit to Mike Love. He did crank out a pretty decent number called Everyone's in Love with You, about his guru, the Maharishi. It's a good song. That Same Song is good. Cool version of Just Once in My Life. So it's Brian, profoundly ill, a sick man, terminally depressed, medicated, under the care of a quack physician, but still able to occasionally generate something really good. That album actually sold a lot. It had a hit single with Chuck Berry's Rock and Roll Music. So expectations are high for the blockbuster Sockaroony hit follow-up, and the Beach Boys deliver this one, which for the first time since Pet Sounds is produced, written, and arranged entirely by Brian Wilson. Only problem is that, unlike Pet Sounds, Brian Wilson has already gone through at least 2 nervous breakdowns. He's got the undiagnosed depression. He's having auditory hallucinations from voices telling him that he's a piece of shit. The aforementioned quack physician and medication. This poor guy has just been put into a garbage compactor and squashed into a cube. But the whole thing is, well, come on, Brian, just one more hit. You can do it. Come on, Brian. Get out of bed. We need a hit single. Come on, Brian. You can do it. And so he got out of bed and he did it and delivered one of the weirdest. This sounds like I'm describing another Beach Boys record. Another weird, wonderful, bizarre album. Beach Boys Loves You, Beach Boys Love You, totally predates Daniel Johnston. And if you know Daniel Johnston, you know what I'm talking about. It's almost lo-fi. It's achingly personal. But the world that Brian Wilson lived in was so basically limited by his 4 walls. He wrote an entire album about heartache and about longing and about watching TV and, his kids and looking through a telescope, an entire album. And it's really stripped down. It's really minimal. The songs are great. It is a strange album, but it's really lovable, really likable, really lovable. Weird, but not as claustrophobic and downright bizarre as Smiley Smile. You could pretty much draw a direct line between these two albums from 1967 to 1976. It's just that this one is a little bit lighter in approach, and it's all Brian, no Beach Boys productions, all Brian. So now I'm really starting to fall in love with the Beach Boys, Brian Wilson specifically, because I'm hearing some genuinely strange music and some genuinely good music, which there's no denying the legacy. No denying the legacy. No denying the legacy. But they ended up producing stuff that went way beyond, while saddled with being the image of the Beach Boys. What a fine line to walk, Really fine line to walk. And of course, you got albums like Stack of Tracks, which is all Brian Wilson's instrumental tracks. No vocals, minimal vocals. The music is brilliant. The production is incredible. This was the only guy who was a Phil Spector worshiper and acolyte who actually had a style all of his own and gave Phil Spector a run for his money. And in fact, I'll take Brian Wilson over Phil Spector any day. Any day. Because when I hear Phil Spector, I hear bombast, I hear explosions, I hear crashes, I hear a din. When I hear Brian Wilson's productions, I hear shadows and light and subtlety and dynamics, depth, sensitivity. I don't hear any of that in Phil Spector's productions. I hear a lot of that in Brian Wilson's productions. So if you just want to hear really amazing production and great instrumental tracks, Stack of Tracks. This is an original U.S. Capitol pressing. I think it sold about 15 copies when it came out. But, surprisingly enough, deluxe packaging, gatefold. It's got an insert. It's got all the chord charts. It's got a libretto if you want to sing along. It's got the classic Capitol Rainbow label. This record for a very long time was only available as a UK import with a different cover. I've only ever seen this US pressing, maybe 2 or 3 times ever, including this one copy from my personal collection. This one's not for sale. I really didn't want to get into infomercial territory this week, but I, of course, will mention that a lot of these Beach Boys records I'm showing you are for sale, including this copy of Endless Summer with the poster, double album, mint vinyl. This copy of The Beach Boys Love You is for sale. I recommend it very highly. This one is for sale. It's got its moments. It's not a masterpiece, but it's got its moments. I got a couple of others that I'm willing to sell, including this one right here. My most recent Beach Boys discovery, and the whole reason I'm even on this tear about Brian Wilson, is because there's one Beach Boys record I never, ever listened to. I never listened to it. Never played it once. In spite of the fact that for years and years and years, Brian Wilson consistently said it was his favorite Beach Boys record, his favorite Beach Boys album. And he was consistent with that statement pretty much until the day he died. He always said that his favorite Beach Boys album was one entitled Friends. And this record was always described to me as being very tranquil, very peaceful, like A Feather in the Wind. And maybe that's why I never wanted to get around to listen to it. But when I did my Tent Talks Tunes a couple of weeks ago where I was selling records, and I dragged out some Beach Boys stuff, and I had this double album of Smiley Smile and Friends, which is still for sale, by the way. Double album. You can see the hype sticker I put on it, which describes the contents. In case you can't read, I'll read it for you. It says, one of the best with the weirdest Beach Boys albums, 2 for the price of 1. Yes, double album with Smiley Smile and Friends on vinyl. Because I had this record out, I said, well, you know what? I might as well play it, right? I mean, I never listened to it. Might as well listen to it. What the H? That album, I could see why Brian Wilson always called it his favorite album. This is third best Beach Boys album ever. Obviously, Smile, which finally did come out. It was finally completed, finally released back in, I think, 2011. That's number 1. Pet Sounds, the obvious choice, in my book is number 2. And people can argue back and forth about which one is better. Does it really matter? Not really. Smile, number 1. Pet Sounds, number 2. Friends, number 3. This has got all of the elements. It's got the weirdness. It's got the beauty. It's got the DIY tracks. It's got the top shelf session musicians with sophisticated arrangements. It's even got a good Mike Love song on here. It's got 2 good Mike Love songs. I knew I was in trouble when I was humming one of the Mike Love songs while doing the dishes. That's how good this record is. I mean, it's got top shelf Brian Wilson production, but apparently delivered without any of the pressure, because the record company had just given up on them by then. They didn't care what the Beach Boys turned in. So for once, Brian Wilson was free to make whatever he wanted to make. And this album rules. I only have it on CD. It's on my list now to get it on vinyl, because I need it on vinyl. And that's what triggered this whole thing. The Beach Boys, Friends. Another one of those albums, you gotta hear it. You just gotta hear it. There is no hype behind this record, but it's effing great. I will probably play it again tonight. I've played it every day for the last 2 weeks, sometimes twice a day. Man, this album is good. I got to make up for lost time, you know? Who would have thought? Who would have thought? And then, of course, if you want, and I'm going to give you guys, I'm going to give away one of my trade secrets, indirectly related to the Beach Boys. Murray Wilson, the rather sick father of Brian Wilson and Dennis Wilson and Carl Wilson, universally recognized as a genuine sicko. He put out his own album entitled The Many Moods of Murray Wilson. There he is on the back. It's a kind of fun album of Muzak type of stuff. The Many Moods of Murray Wilson. My solo album. Talent borrows. Genius steals. Just letting you guys know where I got it. And just like that, I have talked about the Beach Boys and my love for the band as a whole, but Brian Wilson specifically, for about an hour. I want to thank everybody who stuck with me for it. It's quite a journey and very rewarding listening, all the way from Little Deuce Coupe, and she's looking fine, that 409, all the way up to and including Solar System, Johnny Carson, Roller Skating Child, and even beyond sometimes. Whew. And all because of one unreleased phantom work of art that proved to be worth all the hype. God damn. I'm done talking. I'm out of here. If all goes well, as Hank Sr. said, Lord willing and the creeks don't rise, I should be back in about 167 hours' time. So until we meet again, this is indeed Malcolm Tent saying so long from the Tar Heel State.